everyone, in this video we are going to discuss the different artworks in 19th century.
Our group chose to showcase artwork under the categories of realism and romanticism movement.
But before we proceed to the different artworks, let us first discuss the characteristics, factors that influence its rise as well as its demise or fall, its cultural significance, and major works of the realism and romanticism movement. Erica, can you tell us about the realism movement?
The Realism art period was a stylistic and social movement that began in France in the mid-19th century. The Realism movement rejected the artistic approach of the Romantic period that had been preceded it, which glorified nature and heroic figures. Before Realism, painting and sculpture had been concerned with rendering biblical and mythological figures that exalted the best of humanity. Human figures were presented as classical Greek ideals with perfect bodies and beautiful unblemished faces. In support of portrayals of real life, the traits of realism are objectify, accurate observation, lucid but restrained criticism of social environments and mores, and the human understanding that underlies its moral judgments. The Realism art movement was led by Gustave Courbet, and during the height of that form's development, realism became an essential part of the contemporary novel.
While in the Romanticism movement, there was a strong emphasis on all kinds of emotions, including fervor, mystery, and spirituality. The Romantic movement was influenced by a time when people was rejecting the social and political norms of the Age of Enlightenment and turning down nature, history, mysticism, and supernatural, the extraordinary and fantastic, and the strange and unexpected. However, the moment came to an end as the working class took control to the culture and England's population started to feel the full effects of the Industrial Revolution.
The greatness of both movements is highly valued and acknowledged as it was able to influence the world of art. Realism paved the way to modern art, an art that captures real-life events and made history paintings way more than ever. These movements caused an uproar in Europe and amongst the Western nations, not just at the near end of the 18th century, but throughout the 19th century. The trick to fully understanding how romantic artworks are is that you don't need to understand them on logical reasoning, but rather the sensation of the feeling, as romanticists was so keen on emphasizing the subjectivity of the mind in their artworks. However, other factors contributed to the demise of both realism and romanticism movements. Modernism outright rejected the realism school of thought and employed the works of the past. Photography was also a major factor in the departure of many artists from realism. With how photographs were able to accurately depict the art of life and the world, the ingenuine machinery led to many ways in which art can be captured that the movement was unable to live up to. While romanticism, on the other hand, the movement came to an end as the working class took control of the culture. The start of the Industrial Revolution. Each movement had a purpose, and that was to replace the former, which is in the case of the Romanticism and Realism movements. Alas, both of these movements would soon come to an end as they were able to hold up the eventual evolution, creation, and innovation of art in their times.
Oh, thank you for that information, Riley. With that, let us start showing our different artworks. We will now start presenting our different artworks from Realism movement. To start, my chosen artwork during the Realism era is the artwork of William Adolphe Bouguereau. It is entitled The Elder Sister of 1869. The artwork is now presented in the Museum of Fine Arts in Houston. Bouguereau's painting portrays a young girl somewhere in her preteens sitting on a rock and holding a small infant in her arms. The infant appears to be shown sleeping while the older girl is looking straight at the painter, who would now be the viewer of the artwork. Bouguereau's ability when it comes to painting Such fine details in his artworks would tend to be mistaken as photographs themselves due to the sheer patience and precision which he is able to conquer. The texture of the grass and its blades, the work on the trees and its leaves that are usually aren't seen to be important when it comes to being part of the background of certain paintings. Not to mention the work he was able to do on the center of focus of the painting, which is the girl. Her nails from her fingertips are so gently portrayed. The right lighting and shadowing of certain areas made them stand out as well, including the painter's depiction on the girl's sleeves that others would feel awe and flabbergasted to such pristine that makes the figures ooze elegance and composure.
So this artwork is called The Child's Path. It was painted in 1893 by Mary Cassatt. Mary Cassatt is well known for her depictions of ladies and children, as well as her experiments with Japanese art creative techniques. But before we move to the explanation of this painting, let me tell you a bit of background on how Cassatt ended up in this painting. Cassatt saw a large exhibition of Japanese prints at the École de Beaux-Arts in Paris in 1890 and produced a series of prints influenced by their aesthetics. The intimate scene of everyday life also echoes the subject of many Japanese prints. Her study of decorative patterning and the flattened picture plane resulted in The Child's Path. This artwork depicts a small child where she is seated on a woman's lap and her feet is being bathed in a bowl of water. As seen in the painting, the woman shows protection and tenderness by simply touching gently the child. The painting can be seen as a loving relationship where they express it through the act of washing. As a result, another artist mentioned that Cassatt's subject matter focused on a woman that gives importance to a bond to the child.
The third artwork is called The Stonebreakers by Gustave Courbet in 1849.
Courbet's use oil on canvas painting emphasized a young man and an older man breaking rock to convey the emotions of hardship. It was a depiction of the demanding work that underprivileged citizens had to do daily, as well as the oppression and privation of rural life in mid-19th century France. The Stonebreakers was the first of Courbet's great works, and it was destroyed in 1945 when Dresden was bombed. A philosopher referred to Courbet's painting as a symbol of the rural world. The subjects of Courbet's painting are prevalent people and places. Courbet painted these common people to represent the French people as a political entity. Courbet's republicanism was evident in his work in this way. As a result, he became known as the Realist movement's leader.
The next artwork is Burial at Ornans by Gustave Courbet, painted in 1850 and displayed in Musée d'Orsay, Paris. Burial at Ornans, and now regarded as one of the best genre paintings, are all about the funeral of Courbet's great-uncle, which took place in September 1848 at Ornans, a tiny village near Bescadon in northeastern France, where the family was born. To emphasize the truthful nature of realism, Courbet decided to paint the same town residents who had attended the burial rather than using professional models, which was customary. Additionally, a burial at Ornans includes several traditional compositional features. First, the plane in the painting is made deliberately narrow and crowded to accentuate the monumentality and solidarity of the occasion. Second, the silhouette of the mourners follows the line of the horizon, and nothing is allowed to project into the sky except for the crucifix. It not only indicates the fundamentally earthbound character of life, but it also emphasizes that everyone is equal before God. Lastly, using muted colors as well as the evening gloom and the sober restraint shown by the mourners and priests alike, the artist underlines the importance and dignity of ordinary life and death. Furthermore, one can say that a burial at Ornans signals the end of Romanticism.
Now let's go on to the next artwork, named Whistler's Mother. It's a painting produced by English artist James Abbott McNeill Whistler in 1871. This renowned painting is believed to be one of the most famous artworks in existence. touring different locations throughout the world. James McNeill Whistler's oil-work Whistler's Mother is also known as Arrangement in Grey and Black, the artist's mother. The Musée d'Orsay in Paris now owns this oil-on-canvas painting. People are still in awe whenever this picture graces their country's museum to this day, and it has given a whole new perspective to what art meant to the artist. Whistler wanted the painting to be a study in color and form, and its austere subject matter and often simple, almost abstract paint application attempted to challenge conventional narrative art expectations. The portrait's psychological sensitivity is effectively conveyed by the composition's deliberate simplification. With its linear simplicity and chromatic rigor, characterized by the neutral tones, the piece continues Whistler's experimenting with prints. Whistler made this painting after returning from Paris, where he studied traditional art techniques at the École Impériale. It's remarkable to see how in just 10 years, art styles shifted from realism to impressionism.
See how creative they're creating their art pieces. It really inspires a lot of people, especially the young artists nowadays. For the next part of this video, we will now present our chosen Romanticism artworks.
Is the Ninth Wave by Ivan Baudsky in the year 1850 and now displayed in the State Russian Museum, Lvovsky Palace, Russia. Ivan Vasovsky, hailed as a great master of marine art, produced almost 6,000 marine paintings over the course of his career. But Ninth Wave stands out as the work that established him as one of the greatest marine painters in history. Most of his works frequently include strong storms and shipwrecks, while humans appear to be lost in waves and have few opportunities to defend themselves. The Ninth Wave is distinctive in some way. According to certain myths, the ninth wave of every storm is the one that is strongest and most hazardous. We see just that in Vasovsky's artworks as a massive ninth wave approaches the three survivors of a shipwreck. They are clinging to a mass fragment, although in contrast to the dramatic theme, the whole atmosphere and the color palette of the painting is optimistic. We see a sunrise upon the sea, the night storm is over, and the survivors have hope. This notional contrast, together with the expertly painted sea, waves, and even tiny drops of water sparkling in the light, all contributed to Vasovsky and his painting's popularity.
Second artwork is named The Desperate Man, produced by Gustave Courbet in 1843. The Desperate Man remained in the artist's studio until his death. The 24-year-old stares out at the observer, wild-eyed, his hands staring at his flowing, untidy hair, and the modestly sized painting. Courbet, dressed in a blousy white shirt and blue smock, is the typical romantic artist, a troubled genius yearning for fame and a bite to eat. While familiar in this folkloric sense, the Desperate Man stands in stark contrast to the public image Courbet had been cultivating for himself. The unadorned reality of these works would establish Courbet as the proponent of a new art, one that depicted life, including the lower classes, as it is. To know in order to do, that was my idea, the artist wrote in 1855. To be in a position to translate the customs, the ideas, the appearance of my time, according to my own estimation, to be not only a painter, but a man as well. In short, to create living art. That is my goal. Courbet, on the other hand, is rarely acknowledged as being linked to the themes and beliefs of the Romantics, who were at the pinnacle of their success around the time of Courbet's birth in 1890. Courbet's career occurred during a transitional time that saw the end of Romanticism and the development of realism and modernism in European visual culture. However, his early self-portraits appear to argue otherwise, implying that Courbet was intensely aware of and inspired by traditions dating back to Dürer in the 16th and Rembrandt in the 17th century.
So for our second to the last artwork under the Romanticism movement, this painting is called The Baxters. It was painted by Theodore Géricault in 1818. A quick background of Jerry Colt is that in 1817, he began to practice lithography. The famous English sport of boxing is shown in the artwork to boxers by two muscular fighters who is facing off against one another while in a strikingly standard form. Also noticeable in the picture is the use of black and white color to actually draw attention to racial difference through stylized symmetries. To give emphasis on the image, this painting shows rivalry between two men.
This last artwork, I'm sure this painting is something that we all would like to experience seeing once in our lives. The feeling of just staring into the horizon or just staring down at the valley of mountains and the sea of clouds and fog. That's the artwork right there by Caspar David Friedrich, known as the Wanderer Above the Sea of Fog of 1818. The artwork is being displayed at the Hamburger Kunsthalle in Hamburg, Germany. As one could guess it, the painting depicts a young man as he appears to be standing at the far top and maybe edge of a cliff of a mountain, as he looks on the landscape before him, where visibility can be assured due to the sheer depth of fog around. He appears to be somewhat contemplating, wondering, reflecting, or just living the experience. Others suggest that the figure shown is the artist in himself, and that Friedrich wants to enable through his viewers on his perspective and the experience he has with him to his artworks. Friedrich's composition of his work is one of the remarkable ones that he was able to produce. His choice of making it vertical portrays the upright position of the canvas as the same as the uprightness shown to the figure. His technique of only showing the figure's back as he faces toward the same direction as the viewer leaves an impression of curiosity and mystery for the viewer as to wondering what the figure's reaction would be after seeing such scenery. The light, the blending of the palette, and the tone used on the figure makes this artwork one of the very representatives of the Romanticism art movement.
And that concludes our presentation. I hope that the viewers appreciate art more and learn something from it.
Always remember that the arts are used to convey inner thoughts, feelings, and experiences as much as to display aesthetic beauty.
Also, it is a creative expression that can be used as reflection and societal influence.
Additionally, art frequently influences changes in thinking and political stances. And art movements have widely played significant roles in societal transformation.
Lastly, as the saying goes, an art is just another way of keeping a diary.
And with that, thank you for watching.